Wolfpack football fans, it is now officially July. And what does that mean? We're 1 month closer to kicking off the 2024 season. What does that mean today? Our official 2024 schedule predictions.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down and sports stop sportsing over the summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with boost or bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. This episode was originally supposed to be on Monday. Sometimes life gets in the way, and so that is why we are now here on Tuesday. But no matter, very important episode for this summer. Very important episode to start getting ready for football season because it is officially July. We are 1 month closer to kicking this thing off in preparation for arguably the biggest season in the history of NC State football.
Yeah, this season has the potential to be a program changer and a landscape shifter. And when I say a landscape shifter, I mean that this season can have ripples that stretch far beyond NC State because of how well NC State plays here. This is a situation where Grace and I have talked ad nauseum about how when you look at conference realignment, it's not actually about realignment in terms of thinking about it big picture. As a school, as an individual, as a team, you have to stay hyper-focused on win this game, win this next game in front of me. And from that, if you come out on top of enough of those games, find yourself in the conference championship, all of a sudden you're raising your cachet to another level, let alone win a conference championship. That's sending you to a different stratosphere while the ACC is objectively looking very weak according to public perception. It doesn't matter if you're the quote-unquote strongest of the week. It just matters that, hey, we've shown that we are the best of a group or a Power 4 team, a Power 4 conference, rather. So with that in mind, you're absolutely right. This could be one of the biggest years in NC State history, or it has the potential to be another, this is who you are. This is who you'll always be. Don't ever think you can get more type of year.
So how do Kenton and I see this season going down? Well, we've broken this out into 3 blocks, 4 games in each of those 3 blocks. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, kicking off our first block here of our first 4 games, we obviously open this season with Western Carolina on a Thursday evening. I've suddenly come to love opening up the season on a Thursday evening. I don't exactly know why, because there's nothing I love more than a full-blown Saturday college football slate. But for some reason, I found quite the affinity for NC State in particular, opening up their season on Thursday, getting Western Carolina to open the season on a Thursday night. I just feel like it's a very good appetizer for this type of season that we're looking to have. Now, with all due respect to Western Carolina, they should not pose much of a problem to us at any point in this game. Not with the roster we have, not with the expectations we have, virtually nothing.
Yeah, shout out to the Catamounts. More power to them. I hope they go on to have a wonderful season, but this should be a pretty easy play your young guys in the second half type of game.
Oftentimes with these early games that tend to be blowouts, a lot of times people wonder, well, how much of the playbook are they going to show? Are they going to mash the gas pedal all the way down when they have a team like Tennessee that's lurking in week 2? Me personally, in the new world of this 12-team college football playoff, there is kind of an element where NC State is at some point going to have to establish some style points this season. Because if it comes down to the committee deciding your fate, for example, let's say they're 10-2. And let's say this Western Carolina team takes us to overtime and we win by a field goal. That is a considerably large blemish that will be on the resume if it were to come to that type of thing. So not only should this be a comfortable win, I would like to see NC State win this in dominant fashion. The last time we saw Western, I believe it was 2019, and we beat them 41-0. That's the type of effort I'm looking for. Pretty simple to guess where we're going with this one. Kenton and I both have NC State starting the season off 1-0. Next one here, we have week 2. I don't exactly believe in Super Bowls in the regular season because, to be quite honest with you, we have 12 Super Bowls that we have to play. Anyone that would tell you that this isn't one of the biggest 2 games is a liar. And so I'm certainly not going to do it here either. This game has been circled in our calendar for what feels like probably 3 years now, once it was announced way out in advance. The opportunity for NC State to establish themselves on a national level is right here. Not only that, it's also within the state of North Carolina. You don't have to leave the borders of the state to be on a primetime 7:30 ABC slot in front of the entire nation to see. And Tennessee is a very formidable opponent to be on the other side of the field of for this one.
And you talk about Nico, you talk about Pierce, you talk about McCoy, you talk about a lot of playmakers on this team. There is a ton of really, really good players on this Tennessee team. And there is, Heupel is starting to come into his own as a head coach. He loves to go deep, and they love to establish that deep ball with the running game to start off with. So fitting the run will be kind of the ultimate test here, because if you can stop that and you say, hey, you know what? We're going to make Nico drop back and beat us the entire game. Don't get me wrong. He absolutely embarrassed Iowa's defense in the bowl game. But with that in mind, if I'm telling you, hey, this guy is a young man who, again, you can pin your ears back and go get him because you can't throw or you can't run the ball at all, that puts your defense in a much better position than if they have a balanced attack. So, Tennessee has some ball players. They really do. I'm very intrigued to see how this one goes down at a neutral site.
Nico Iamaleava displayed exactly what we all thought he would be in the Citrus Bowl against Iowa. That was his first start of the season, and he was dynamite. I believe they blew him out like 35-0, if my memory serves correctly.
Absolutely.
If Nico looks anything like that in this week 2 game, we have our hands full. Tennessee, they're going to be hungry for this one. Tennessee loves stages like this one. Their fan base is going to travel extremely well. They're going to be extremely loud, and this is a game that they also want to establish their dominance. The July storyline on this one for me, can NC State's offense get up to speed quick enough to handle the defense of Tennessee? This is where I want to see all the stops pulled out. I want to see the full extent of Robert and I's playbook. Yes, in only week 2, but probably because you are going to need it. This game's going to be a really close game. I fully expect it to come down to the wire. Sadly, I have NC State dropping this one. I think Tennessee is just extremely talented, and I think NC State will reach their peak of their potential later on in the season, but so early on this one, I think Tennessee will get us in Charlotte.
I have NC State beating Tennessee in this one. I think that their front seven, while they're really good, I also think that they lost more than people are giving them credit for from last year. I really and truly do. I know that defensive end that they got, everybody saying, hey, he's a number 1 pick type of guy and all that. He's a little too light in the britches. And again, the same thing that I said for Tennessee and their ability to run the ball, it also applies to NC State. If Jordan Waters and company can get some bodies moving around in the direction that they want to, if you can get a running game that is not just decent but good going in this game, I don't see how much of a problem you have with Tennessee, because they struggle against balanced teams. They struggle against teams that are effectively moving the line of scrimmage. And I know that that's kind of cliche, because who doesn't struggle against a team that's moving the line of scrimmage? But when you allow Tennessee to get in those speed packages and they can put their best rushers on the field, and all of a sudden you're looking at a really deleterious situation for your quarterback. So all in all, if you can stay ahead of the sticks, you can win this game, which I think NC State will be able to do.
I certainly can't wait to see NC State on this stage. I anticipate that this game is going to receive College Game Day because I think it is the most electric matchup of that week in particular. And like I said, the opportunity for NC State to establish their presence on a national stage is right there in week 2. With all the outside noise of the entire extent of the season, where they're trying to get to, if you find a way to take out Tennessee in that primetime slot in just week 2, the people will notice. The nation will start talking if you rattle off a win like that one. So undoubtedly one of the 2 biggest games of the season. Week 3, we have Louisiana Tech in Raleigh. I believe the last time we saw the Bulldogs was 2021, and they gave us a scare. I think that game came down to like the final play when we were on defense. We had to swat down a Hail Mary in order to hang on to that one. Louisiana Tech was very bad last year. They were 3-9. They play in the Conference USA. Just very unimpressive in every sense of the imagination.
I really do think that they're going to have a hard time generating anything offensively, anything meaningful offensively, because, again, this is a team that, you know, with all due respect to them, not trying to say anything bad or disparage this team and say, hey, they're not a legitimate FBS team. They are, but like Grayson alluded to, they were not good last year. That was not a team that people were thinking to themselves, man, we've got to be on the lookout. This is a team that could, you know, if you go to sleep, they'll surprise you, because last year that did not happen at all. There was nobody caught off guard by this team. So I don't see us being a victim of it this year.
They were bad last year, and there's really no evidence that suggests that they won't be as bad this year. So kind of the same vibes as the opener against Western. NC State should handle business, and they should handle business in an impressive fashion. Last one here of this first 4 block, the Clemson Tigers, and it's on the road down in Death Valley. One of the other 2 most intriguing matchups of the season. Really don't have to give any further explanation when these 2 teams get together. This year, a little bit higher stakes, being that we just defeated them last year, the second time consecutively we played them in Raleigh. A win down there in Clemson has eluded us for quite some time. I think 2002 is the last time we went down there and took a win off the Tigers. Now, this one has way more importance in the grand scheme of things than the Tennessee game. Why? This is an ACC matchup, and that goes without explaining, but NC State, to feel really good about their shot in getting into the CFP, they more than likely need to just go ahead and win the ACC conference. To do that, you're going to have to go through Clemson. And not only are you going to have to go through Clemson, you're going to have to go through Clemson in Death Valley. It's extremely hard to win a football game there. That's why so few teams have done it in the last, I don't know, like decade. I know Florida State did it last year. Florida State was one of the best 4 teams in the country. That's how they got it done. Can NC State get it done? With the revamped offense, a retooled defense, and Clemson on the other side, to be quite honest with you, I don't know if they're a better football team than they were last year. Obviously, they don't use the transfer portal. They're relying on Cade Klubnik again, the second year of Garrett Riley, their new offensive coordinator. Will it look any different? I'm not so convinced. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Wolfpack to take out the Tigers down in Death Valley.
You know, I don't know what it is about the color orange and these teams that wear orange that has me and Grayson disagreeing, but this is another one of those where, with all due respect, I think we should win this game. I think that we are primed and ready to get this monkey off our back, get the Death Valley monkey off our back. And I think that, you know, Cade Klubnik, while he did improve last year toward the end of the year, I don't think he was good enough to put fear in your hearts. Phil Maffa, good back, really good power back. He lost his running mate in Will Shipley. It's Clemson. I'm sure that they've got another back waiting in the wings that's going to be special. Here's why I have Clemson winning this game. Because their defensive line depth is always there, and their crowd noise makes it so that if you run a system that is, you know, fairly pass heavy, you're going to have problems slowing those guys down when you're doing silent snaps and all that, where there's a very obvious gesture that has to trigger the ball. I really think that's just a tough matchup overall, because some of the things that they can do defensively match up very well for what we have personnel-wise offensively. Don't be shocked if we walk out of Death Valley licking some wounds.
To your point, the last time we were down there back in 2022, that was in large part of the reason we just could not keep anything sustained on offense. Could not establish any semblance of a run game. Jordan Waters, a new Jordan's in town, he's going to have to lead the way. His experience is going to have to pay off in a game like this one. If NC State can control the run game and then that helps supplement the pass game, who knows what could happen from there. But that undoubtedly is the formula for taking out the Tigers down there in Clemson. We're going to get into our next block of 4 games after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor is FanDuel. Look, we all love sports. In fact, we love them so much, We never want them to end. But as the playoffs have now winded down, we get fewer and fewer games to enjoy throughout the summer. In all reality, it's kind of just Major League Baseball. FanDuel, on the other hand, will keep the sports going whenever we need them. All we have to do is open up the app and dream up any bet anytime we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Middle portion of our Tuesday show. Now time for our second block of games, week 5 through 8. Let's get into it. Picking right back up here, our 5th game of the season is Northern Illinois. We welcome the Huskies into Raleigh. Very cool moment for Coach Dave Dorn, as this is where he joined us from way back in 2012. A chance to coach against his former stop this late in his tenure here in NC State is a very cool ordeal for Coach Dorn. Then as you pick up some reality here, the Huskies are also very average. They were 7-6 last year. They play in the MAC conference. I don't know how much of an issue they can present to NC State, especially with the team that we have, but this is a mess around and find out game, if you've heard of one of those before. If you fall asleep on a MAC team, they don't call it MACtion for nothing. So with all that being said, another game where NC State needs to just handle business. No funny business, no messing around, pedal to the metal, and let them know whose house it is.
Yeah, and there's something that I need everybody to understand here. While that was an average team last year, that team got a win against an ACC team last year. They beat Boston College in their first game of the season. Now, granted, Boston College was still doing the Emmett Moorhead experience and, did not want to start Thomas Castellanos yet. But they won that game. They objectively won that game. And this is a Northern Illinois team that they have always been scrappy. That's always been their identity. They always are going to be a game that they may not have the most talent, but they will fight and scrap and claw until the very last whistle blows. So you have to be ready. You have to strap it on. You cannot let this team hang around. Do what needs to be done early and let them know, hey, we are us and you are you for a reason.
6th game of the season, we welcome Wake Forest into Raleigh. Now, something you might have noticed, so far up to this point, we've only had one game on the road. We've also had a neutral site game, but being that is within the state of North Carolina, it kind of feels like a quasi-home game. So 6 games through the season, which is halfway, you've only played one true road game. That feels like a massive opportunity for NC State to pick up a lot of these games at home. Wake Forest being one of those. We got the Winston-Salem curse off our back last year. We went out and dominated the Deacs in Winston-Salem. It's time that we bring them into Raleigh for this year and have a second helping. Wake Forest was very bad last year. They finished 4-8, and I'm expecting pretty much more of the same this year. I think they have a lot of gaping holes on offense. Their defense has a decent amount to replace. They're going to have to rely on some younger guys to answer the bell. I don't know how much that bell will get answered this year. So NC State, I think this will be a very fun opportunity for the offense to really showcase what they have under the hood. I think this will be a high-scoring affair for NC State. And if the defense can hold serve as well, you might just blow them out.
Lay it on them thick. This is a bad Wake Forest team. I'm sorry to say it. This is a Wake Forest team that, again, we love Dave Clawson and all that he's done over there for so long. Well, let me not say we, because I know there are plenty of people. I know there are plenty of people who don't want to hear that, right? But I mean, you've got to respect it to some degree. What he has done at Wake Forest, one of the toughest places to recruit, one of the toughest places to get transfers into because of their transfer rules and whatnot. That's a tough job. He's done a great job over there. They do not have the horses in the stable. Bury them. Bury this team.
Through the first 6 games of the season, Kenton and I both stand at 5-1. So now let's get into the back half of the season. This, in my opinion, is where it gets officially interesting. And that begins with hosting Syracuse on October the 12th. Now, Syracuse, they had a very interesting portal overhaul in the offseason. You might remember they picked up Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord. Now, things did not quite work out for him in Columbus, but he's still a really good quarterback. I think he will be very solid for the Syracuse Orange. And so for that reason, I wouldn't say that Syracuse scares me per se, but I think that they raise a little bit of an eyebrow. They still have Aronde Gadsden. He's a complete freak of nature. You leave him on guard for a split second, he's probably going to put 3 touchdowns on you. He is that type of good at the tight end position. We found out the hard way when Robert and I was up there at Syracuse, just completely toyed with us using Gadsden up in open space. So Syracuse has my attention. I guess that's the best way to put it. They have my attention. This kind of feels like the makings of a game that seems to be closer than it probably should be. I think we have more talent on both sides of the ball. I expect they're going to come to Raleigh and they're going to want to shock the nation against us. So this is a game where you have to be on your P's and Q's, but if you are, I think NC State will handle business yet again.
3 for 3. Teams in orange. Me and Grayson, we just cannot agree. Kyle McCord is average at best to me. Mid, if you will. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's one of the worst quarterbacks. I think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think that he is very good at at throwing guys open, having great anticipation, all that type of stuff. I just don't. I think that he played with a bunch of guys who are not just first rounders, top half of the first round. Now, with that being said, this is a maturity game for NC State. By this time in the season, the country's going to be on notice. There's going to be really good press clippings about you. They're going to tell you how good you are. Do you have the maturity and confidence to take this game seriously and do what needs to be done from the jump? If you do, you'll be just fine. But if not, like Grayson said, this thing could get much closer than expected.
I think this will be the game, the 7th game of the year. This is where we start to really find out what this team is made of. Assuming that we are 5-1 up until this point, and whether you beat Tennessee or you beat Clemson, or maybe even beat both in the dream scenario, you're probably going to be hovering around like top 10 in the country. You're probably going to be somewhere in the teens at that point in the season. And when that happens, every single team is going to give you their best shot. And Syracuse, the way that they retooled using the portal, they might be able to give us a pretty decent shot. So they have my attention. I'm a little bit intrigued by the way Syracuse will look at that point of the season, but NC State should take care of business there yet again. And last one of the second block, on the road at Cal. New ACC member Cal on the road out to Berkeley on October the 19th. Interesting tidbit, we've actually never played Cal ever in the history of our football program. So this will be the first ever matchup, and we got to fly all the way across the country in order to do it. So perhaps this will be our first taste of ACC after dark. If it ends up being an evening slot, or it could be one of those West Coast nooners for the Wolfpack. That'd be a little bit of a grind, especially having to catch back up after losing 3 hours. I wouldn't exactly call this one a trap game because I do think that another team that we're head and shoulders more talented than on both sides of the ball. But going all the way across the country for the first time, playing this Cal team who was, pretty mediocre in the last year of the Pac-12. I wouldn't say that Cal scares me at all, but there's a couple hairs that have stood up on my neck thinking about this game. I wouldn't say I'm on high alert. I wouldn't say I'm nervous. Syracuse game, that is where things get interesting. And this Cal game is another reiteration of that. So going all the way across the country to play Cal for the first time, I'm intrigued, but I think we'll take care of business there as well.
The same way that Syracuse was a maturity game, again, this is one that shows you, are you ready to be a champion yet?
Yeah.
Because if you sleep on Cal, you will be watching the back of that young man's jersey all day long as they strike up the band out there in Berkeley. That's just the truth. I'm sorry to tell you. You'll be watching number one run away from you as sure as the day is long. So the question becomes, how are you ready to do what needs to be done here? Are you preparing the right way? Because, again, I don't think if Cal plays their best game, NC State plays their best game. I don't think that's a close game. Right. However, Cal plays their best game. NC State is like, we've done our thing already. We're good. Yeah. Okay, try it if you want to.
It has all the makings of a very sleepy time game for NC State going all the way out there. And if you were to drop that game at Cal, it would be the rudest of awakenings for probably ruining a dream season for us over here with the Wolfpack. So that would be a doomsday scenario. Don't expect it to come to that, however. We both have NC State taking care of business out at Cal. Coming up next, we're going to round out our last block of 4 games after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Tuesday show, now finishing out our schedule predictions with the last 4 games of the season. Here we go. So shortly after playing Cal, although there is a bye week sandwiched in between the two, we play one of the other ACC editions in Stanford. Now, this one is in Raleigh. Stanford, and you've heard me say this several other times so far, they were a team that was very bad last year. They were 3-9, no semblance of a defense, just gave up a bajillion yards, a bajillion points, and really their shining moment was that comeback they had against Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes. That was really their only impressive mark of the season. The rest is just kind of a wash. It was that kind of season. They were just flat out bad. And yet another team I don't really have that high of expectations for, again, as you look at 2024. So they have to make the trip cross-country to see us over here in Raleigh. Perhaps that takes a toll on them. Perhaps it doesn't. Regardless, NC State is the better team, and they're going to beat Stanford.
Stop Ayamanor. You have stopped this offense, okay? They have a guy out wide that is special. He is big time. He is a very special receiver. But again, it's just him. At the quarterback position, there is no solid answer right now. They don't know if they're going to go with the 4-star quarterback out of Mater Dei or the incumbent from last year who, I mean, did he do enough for you to say, oh, he's for sure your guy? Not really. So with that in mind, this is a very, very simple, again, these are moments. This back end of the schedule, to me, more so than anything else that we have ever seen. I think this may be the first time since I've been a member of Wolfpack Nation where I look down the schedule and I say, like, at least 9 of these teams I know for a fact we have more talent than.
Yeah.
And it's not close. Stanford is included in that group that we have much more talent than. This is the beginning of our start against the nerds. We should take care of these guys.
So now we're 9 games through the season. Kent and I are both still standing at 8-1, and now we welcome Duke. And we all know the disaster that Duke game was out in Durham last year, embarrassingly lost 24-3. We owe them something serious this year. They're in a rebuild year, first year of Manny Diaz at the helm. Their new quarterback is a backup quarterback from Texas, and Malik Murphy. I think they just lost too much, both coaching and players. It really helps when we take one of their better players in Jordan Waters. He put on the red and white. We owe Duke some get back in a major way. Duke is probably one of the top 3 teams on our schedule that I would love to just absolutely pummel. Last year left a horrible taste in my mouth. For those of you that were tuning in with us in all of our post-game feeds last year, that post-game live in Durham was miserable. It was one of our longest ones of the season, probably one of our most highly attended from you guys, because it was misery. We had no idea where the rest of the season was going. They embarrassed us. It's now time to flip the script a calendar year later. I would love nothing more than to crush Duke, and I actually think that's exactly what's going to happen. I have us beating Duke by a large margin. This
is a game where I'm hoping Dave Dorn shows he's a better man than me, because I would love nothing more than to hang 100 on their head. Okay. My pastor, I love him. I love him to death. The wonderful man that he is, Michael L. Dublin Sr. at South Central Church of Raleigh, South Central Church of Christ in Raleigh. He let me know that he was at the Duke game, and so was I. He let me know he was at the Duke game and that he watched his Duke because he got his, I believe, doctorate in divinity from there. And he let me know, hey, I don't know if I can see you up there in that press box, but I know you're miserable watching this. This game needs to be a definitive. Not only are we the best in the state of North Carolina, we're the best in the triangle, and it's not close. That's what this game needs to show. I got them laying it on them thick in this one.
Game 11 here. We're on the road down in Atlanta to face the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech. For me, this is the trademarked trap game of the year. I believe it's on a Thursday night. You're sandwiched in between Duke and the Dirty Foot Club. You're getting toward the end of the year. Sometimes the bodies are wearing tires. Sometimes it can be a lot to just keep everyone on task and not get surprised by a team that could potentially be like an upstart team in the ACC. I don't think Georgia Tech is crazy talented. I do like their quarterback in Haynes King. I think he's better than people realize he is. I'll be honest about this one. This game scares me. So much so, I actually think that Georgia Tech is going to get us. And it pains me to say that, but this is my trap game of the year, and I think the Yellow Jackets are going to cause enough problems that we get stung on a Thursday night in Atlanta.
The devil went down to Georgia, and so did the Wolfpack to get themselves a win in Atlanta. I think that this is a really good team. I love me. When I say I love, I mean I love me some Coach Key. I think Brent Key is one of the up-and-coming stars in the coaching round because he's a throwback. Hey, there's no easy way out. Football is hard. We're going to do things the hard way. That's just what it is. Love him. Love what his program is about. Haynes King, I agree. Really good quarterback. That guy can fling it. Here's the thing. Despite all of that, Georgia Tech's defense is abysmal.
Yeah.
NC State can play around and let this game be close. Because the Stanford game, I don't think, unless NC State does not show up at all, I don't think that game's close. I think NC State can play around and make this game close. I think NC State comes out with a win and a close one.
Here's my analogy. You remember last year when we played Virginia up in Charlottesville? We messed around that entire game, came all the way down to a game-winning field goal, in which we did hit that. We won the game, thank God. I think that this game against Georgia Tech is going to have very similar vibes, except this time we won't be so lucky. I think we're going to mess around, and then unfortunately I think we will find out, and that is why it is my trap game of the season. So now that leaves just one game left in the regular season, the Dirty Foot Club. Can't wait to make it 4 in a row on these chumps. We've playfully ribbed them a couple times this offseason, poking fun at Mac Brown, crying on National Signing Day about Dave Dorn, not televising his spring game, and worries of the country seeing what's actually going on in that football building. A lot to laugh at over there over the course of this offseason. Then when the season actually starts, I think they will be exposed. For some reason, people think that they're going to be like an 8 to 9 win team. I don't know how people arrive at that. I know they do have a soft schedule, but I'm telling you, they are devoid of talent in a lot of very key areas. Quarterback being one of them. So I love NC State to go over into Carter Finley West and make it 4 in a row against this very soft program.
Soft program, soft people, soft crowd. The crowd's not going to be there. They're not going to have a very good year. They have a good running back, a good tight end room. I just did my good deed for the year saying something nice about the Dirty Foot Club. Outside of those two position groups, this team is devoid of talent all over the place. Another domination. But here's what I would caution NC State of. Do you know what the next best thing to do is if you can't get into the party, Grayson?
I knew it. Yep, I knew you were going here. Go ahead.
Throw a turd in the punch bowl. UNC is going to want to give us an upper decker in the punch bowl. That's what they're going to want to do because they're going to be sitting there salty and sad and licking their wounds. Oh, our coach is probably going to step down at the end of the season because he's like 8,000. He's too soft to do this job still. But they're going to look at NC State, and this is a rivalry, despite the fact that they're not our rivals, even though every time a good social media post is made about NC State, you can surely find a bunch of UNC folks or Dirty Foot Clubbers, national championships. We're your national championship. We don't even want to get to talking about your great players because Lawrence Taylor's got a weird case. Why is he around? But that's neither here nor there. I say all of that to say this. The reality of the situation, this should be 4 straight. However, you cannot let the Dirty Foot Club get their upper decker off. You have to whoop the wheels off of them early. Break their spirit so early. They're like, we don't belong on the field with these guys. We are not like them. They not like us. That needs to be established early.
You need to run back exactly how last season's game felt. We took control and never for 1 second looked back. That type of vibe is what has to go down because exactly what Kenton just said, he beat me to the punch. There is nothing that they would love more than to ruin the season that we're trying to have. For some reason, I just visualized William celebrating in his navy blue puffer jacket, and I started to get a little bit nauseous. I'm currently getting sick to my stomach, picturing those chumps ruining this season. That is absolute doomsday, worst case, nuclear fallout scenario. By no means can we allow that to happen in this season of all seasons. Go over there, impose your will, run up the score, style points, whatever it takes. Continue establishing their dominance and let them know who runs this state. It's us. It has been for a long time, and it will be again this season. We're going to dominate the Dirty Foot Club.
Cut their stupid little bushes and come home with it.
Bradley Chubb with that branch of the bush in his mouth. I need to see that from every single one of our players. Plant the flag again. Do whatever you got to do. Run it up and let them know what kind of business that we're standing on. That'll do it for our schedule prediction episode. I know it came out a day later, but probably worth the wait because this is one of our bigger ones of the offseason. Let us know. So if you were keeping tally, Kenton has us standing at 11-1. I have us standing at 10-2. But I do think in both of those scenarios, NC State is going to make the college football playoff. What a sight to see that will be. If we follow through on the hype and we follow through on the expectations, we win the games that we're supposed to win and take out a couple teams that may stand in our way, what a special season it could be lining up to be for the NC State Wolfpack. But now it's your turn. Let us know in the comments how you think that this season will go. If you see any trap games, maybe some games that no one else is really talking about, let us know in the comments. And more importantly, let us know your final schedule prediction. If you think we're going 10-2, you think we're going to go 12-0, you think we're going 11-1. For some reason, all hell breaks loose and we go 7-5. We want to know why you think that way. Put it down in the comment box. Anything else you have on your mind as well, put it down in that box and let us know. We will see you all on Wednesday. Thank you all so much for joining us. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.